Good morning. So, hopefully you spent some time yesterday working through that study guide. I did want to just kind of go through just a few things with you today through this little review, just so that you feel comfortable for your test tomorrow. Okay. So, some of the things that you missed on your quizzes were classifying triangles by their sides and by their angles. So let's look here. So triangle A, B, and E. So A, B, and E right there. So that is going to be a right triangle. Yeah. Okay, it's right, and it's also going to be scaling all of the sides and angles are going to be different. Okay. Triangle BEC right here. So B, E, and C right here. So what type of triangle is that one going to be? Okay. This is going to be an isosceles inside here. So an acute isosceles. Okay. And D, E, and F, so all those are congruent. So that's going to be what? An equal angular. An equilateral. C, D, and F here. One of the angles is going to be big, so that's an obtuse. And scaling as well. Okay, so through here, this next part said to classify by its sides, we want to find the distance. Use the distance formula. Okay, so we want to find the distance on QR, the distance on RS, and the distance on QT. Okay, remember what your distance formula is. It's your x1 minus your x2 squared plus your y1 minus your y2 squared, and then take the square root of that. Okay. All right. This next part, y'all did really good on your quiz on this. So angle 1, so those are a linear pair right there. So that is going to be, angle 1 there is going to be equal to 180 minus that 88. So angle 1 there is going to be 92 degrees. Okay. So these are, this line right here. Here, this line and this line here are going to be parallel, right? So right here, if this is a intersection here, so this angle and this angle, so measure of angle 5 are going to be congruent. So measure that, so 81 and angle 5 there are going to be congruent. So that's going to be 81 degrees. Okay, so if angle 5 there is 81 degrees, so now I can go back and find angle 4. Okay, so you may just have to go backwards. Whoops, I'm sorry, I didn't realize this was crooked. So 180 minus 64 minus an 81. So angle 4 there is going to be 35 degrees. Okay, so now angle 3 plus 81 plus your angle 4, okay, those are going to be equal to 180 as well, because those are all linear pairs. They're together there. Okay, so 81, so 180 minus 81 minus 35. So angle 3 here is going to be 64 degrees. Okay, so then angle 2 is going to be 180 minus 92 minus 64. So it's going to be 24 degrees. Okay, good deal. All right, let's look at number 6 here. So number 6, we have 3 angles right here. Remember that on the outside here, this angle is going to be the sum of these 2 angles over here. So 11x minus 63 is going to be equal to 2x plus 20 plus 5x minus an 11. And then you would solve for x here. So just solve for x. Okay, these angles all inside here. So what's it wanting to find? It wants you to find x. So all of these angles inside here should add together to be 180. So 8x minus 35 plus 6x minus a 5 plus 3x minus a 1 should add together to be 180. Okay. All right, let's look here. So for question 7, 8, and 9, so now I want to find the measure of angle A. So to be able to find the measure of angle A, I need to find what x is. So on your quiz, some of y'all just gave me what x equals. So make sure you go that one step and give me what that measurement actually is. So all these angles inside here would add together to be 180. So 3x minus 4 plus 9x plus a 17 plus 6x minus a 31 should all add together to be 180. Once you find x, then you'll plug it in right here, and 9 times whatever that x plus the 17 would give you this value. Okay? All right, here, same thing. So this 10x minus a 23 is going to be equal to these 2 sides here, so add it together. So 5x minus 27 plus 7x minus a 26. Find your x and then solve, plug in whatever that x is inside the A. Okay, so we're looking for A there. Okay, find each missing measure. So if I have 2 congruent sides, then that means that angle R right there is also going to be 74 degrees because it's equal, these 2 sides, so they're isosceles there. So Q is going to be 32. Okay, so here if measure of angle 48 here, 48, 48. So that means that this is going to be an isosceles triangle. So that means that angle A there, so still 180 minus that, so that is going to be an 84. And AC, so it's going to be the same length as that because it's an isosceles. Equilateral here, so all the angles in an equilateral triangle are all going to be 60 degrees. 180 divided by 3. Okay, so right here, to find the measure, so 106, so 180 minus 106 is 74. So take that and divide that by 2, so you're going to get 37. So each one of those angles should be 37. Okay. All right, here, if I know that this one's 34 and I have an isosceles triangle, so these 2 angles there are going to be the same measure, right? So if this one's 34, so 180 minus a 34 is going to give me a what? 180 minus a 34 is going to give me a 146, right? That's not how much this angle is. I'm going to divide that by 2. So 146 divided by 2 is 73. So each one of those angles is going to be 73 degrees. So 8x minus 23 is going to be equal to 73. And solve for x. Equilateral here, so I know that all angles inside there are going to be equal to 60. So this is going to be 9x minus 3 is equal to 60. Okay, so triangle C, D, and E is an isosceles triangle with angle D is congruent to angle E. So down here, let's draw those. So these 2 are going to be congruent. So C is going to be my vertex. If CD is equal to 4x plus a 9, DE is equal to 7x minus a 5, and CE is equal to 16x minus 27. Find the measures of each side. So these 2 sides are going to be congruent. So I can say 4x plus a 9 is going to be equal to 16x minus a 27. So that's why it's so important to draw a picture and know. So you could have said C, D, and E, but it does tell you that D and E are congruent, the angles. So that means these two sides that are connecting those angles are going to be congruent as well. Okay? So find your X and then find each missing piece. So find your C, D here, then find your DE, plug in your X value, and then find in your CE. Those should be the same value. Okay? All right, so let's look at some more questions here. So in triangle QRS is an equilateral triangle. So QRS is an equilateral. So that means that QRS is an equilateral. QR is 17 more than twice X. RS is 19 less than 6 times X. So QR is 17 more than twice your X. RS is 19 less than 6 times X. So that's going to be 6X minus 19. And QS is 1 less than 4 times X. So that's 4X minus 1. Find the measure of each side. Okay, so we know it doesn't matter, it's an equilateral triangle, so equilateral means that all of them are going to be equal, so it doesn't matter which one you set equal to each other. It'll give you the same X value. Okay, so we can say, what, 2X plus a 17, I should have written that one like that, is equal to 6X minus a 19. Okay, subtract your X, subtract your 17, divide by negative 8. Okay, so, same thing. All right, so find your X and then plug it in to find the sides there. So in triangle JK and L, if JK is congruent to JL, so that means that J is going to be my vertex up here. So JK, and L. So these two sides are going to be congruent. So the measure of angle J here is 23. X minus a 4. The measure of angle K and the measure of angle L are going to be equal to each other. Okay? So that's why it's important to draw your picture to know which one to set equal to each other. Here it matters. So here my only two things that are equal to each other are going to be K and L. So 4X minus a 1 is going to be equal to 9X minus a 31. It's the only way I would be able to solve that one. And then solve for X there. Okay? So, write 3 valid congruency statements given the triangles below. Y'all did really well on this on your quiz. So, Q, P, and R. So, triangle Q, P, and R is congruent. Now we have to do the same. It's congruent to T, U, and S. Okay? We can start with P here. So, P, R, and Q is going to be congruent to U, S, and T. And then I can start with R. So R, Q, and P is going to be congruent to S, T, and U. Okay? So that's just a few. You could keep going forever and ever. Okay? So if triangle KPL is congruent to triangle ACM. Okay, so if triangle KPL is congruent to triangle ACM. Okay, so KL is going to be congruent to AM. Okay, AC is going to be congruent to KP. And PL is going to be congruent to CM. So pictures are so important. Angle P is going to be congruent to angle C. Angle K is going to be congruent to angle A. Angle M is going to be congruent to angle L. Okay, good. All right, so if in this triangle WXY, so W, X, and Y is congruent, so W, X, and Y is going to be congruent to H, J, and I. Okay, so JI is going to be the side here. All right, so WX is the same thing as JH over here. Okay, XY is going to be the same thing as JI. So this is going to be 16 meters. So JH here is going to be the same as 15 meters. And I'm looking for the number here on your quiz. Some of y'all did not put the actual values, which I didn't take off if you didn't put if you put the right coordinate part over here, what coordinates with it, I didn't count off, but make sure you do put the values. So measure of W, so angle W is going to be the same thing as 37 degrees over here. J, angle J is going to be 114. And measure of I is going to be the remainder, right? So 180 minus 114 minus a 37, which is going to be a 29. Okay? All right, so there's how we prove triangles, side, 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 right? Side, angle, side, so it's the included angle, angle, side, angle, included side, angle, angle, side, that would be the opposite, and then your hypotenuse leg. Okay, so here we've got angle, side, angle, so yes, we can prove these. Okay, side, side, now they're going to be able to, they include that side, so those are the same. I have side, side, and then I do know that those are vertical angles, right? So those are congruent to each other. But side, side, angle, I don't have that anywhere. So I don't have that is not going to be able to, I'm not going to be able to prove if that's congruent there. I need to know a little bit more. Okay, here I know a leg and a hypotenuse of that right triangle, so I can prove that by hypotenuse leg. Okay, all right, so then the last big stuff, the proving that triangles are congruent. So remember, to prove that corresponding parts are congruent, we have to prove that the triangles are congruent first, okay? So like down here, 25 right here, I'm going to have to prove that those angles are congruent. To be able to do that, I need to prove that the triangles are congruent, okay? So, and same thing with 26 and 27 as well, okay? So we have to find what we know. Okay, remember, we write down what we know. So Q is the midpoint. So Q is midpoint of PT. And RS. So we can write that on the same line since it's given there. Okay, so if Q is the midpoint of PT, then that means that those two line segments are going to be congruent. So PQ is going to be congruent to TQ. Okay, so it's also the midpoint of RS, so that means that RQ and QS now are going to be congruent. So RQ is going to be congruent to SQ. All right, so the other thing that I know is that this angle is going to be, those are vertical angles. Sorry, I don't know why this is so crooked up here. So these are vertical angles, so those are going to be congruent. So PQ and R. So PQ and R is going to be congruent to T, Q, and S. Those are vertical angles. Remember, you have to go from the same sides that are going to be congruent there. Okay, so now this is side, angle, side. Side, angle, side there. So that is a way that we can prove congruency. So now the triangle P, Q, and R is going to be congruent to the triangle TQ and S by side angle side. Okay? All right, if AC bisects angle BAD and BCD, so that's given. So if AC bisects BAD, so that means that these two angles are going to be congruent. So that means that BAC is going to be congruent to angle DAC. That's a definition of angle bisector. Okay, and then in here, it's also these two angles there are going to be congruent. So angle B, C, and A is going to be congruent to angle D, C, and A. That's definition of an angle bisector as well. Okay, so I know that this angle, those are going to be congruent. They share this side. So AC is going to be congruent to AC. So on both sides, that's the reflexive property. You use the reflexive property when they share the same side together. Okay? Okay, now what property, now what do I have? I have an angle, included side, and an angle. So angle by angle, side, angle, these are going to be congruent. So triangle ABC is going to be congruent to triangle ADC. Okay? Alright, let's look here. 25. So write what you know. So triangle WZX and triangle YZX are right triangles. So that's given. Okay, so WZX and YZX are right triangles, so that's given. So what does that mean? That means that they're right angles, so it's 90 degrees inside there. Also, that WX is going to be congruent to YX. So WX is going to be congruent to YX there. That's given. Okay. They share the same side, so XZ is going to be congruent to XZ. There's a reflexive property. They're sharing that side. Okay, so how can I prove that WXZ and YXZ are the angles there are congruent? I have to prove that the triangles are congruent first. Okay. And here, this is a right triangle, so hypotenuse and my legs are going to be congruent. So that means that the triangles WXZ is going to be congruent to the triangle YZX by hypotenuse leg. WXZ is going to be congruent to YXZ. Hypotenuse leg there. Okay, so now my angle WXZ is going to be congruent to angle YXZ. Okay. All right. So last two here. Given that BC and AD are parallel. So BC is parallel to AD. So that is given. All right, so when that is given here, that I know now that CBD and ADB, so these angles are going to be congruent there. So angle C, B, and D is going to be congruent to angle A, D, and B. Okay, and that's alternate interior angles. Okay. BA and D, so angle BA and D, is going to be congruent to angle DC and B. DC and B. Sorry, I'm going to do there. So that was given. Alright, so they share this common side here, so BD is going to be congruent for both of them. So what do I have here? Angle, angle, side. So by the angle, angle, side, these triangles are congruent. So I can say, whoops, okay, CBC, DC. That corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent there. Okay, so triangle BAD is going to be congruent to triangle DC and B. And so the side AB is going to be congruent to the side CD. Okay? All right, last one here. So QR is going to be parallel to ST. So that's given. QR is parallel to ST. RS is parallel to TU. So RS is parallel to TU. Okay. I guess I should do two little things there. And then QS is going to be congruent to SU. So QS is going to be congruent to SU. Okay, so if I have if this line, I'm going to try to go like this so maybe you can see it a little bit. But if these are parallel, these are parallel here. Okay, so what does that mean for if this was my line, then what? Q and S right there would be corresponding angles, so those would be congruent, right? So I can say that, so R, Q, and S, so angle R, Q, and S is going to be congruent to T, S, and U. That's corresponding angles. Okay, so also let's kind of turn this way as well. So I have, I'm going to have some other corresponding angles. I'm going to do a different color here. So these are going to be parallel. Okay, so what? S and U are going to be corresponding angles. If this was your transversal here, okay, if that was your transversal going through those. So on R, S, and Q is going to be congruent to T, U, and S. Okay, so what do I have? An angle, side, angle. Okay, so that means that triangle, R, let's make those two right there. So R, Q, and S is going to be congruent to T, S, and U. So that means the given angles are going to be congruent. Okay, good deal. All right, so I think you can do better. Hopefully yesterday's day of kind of just review and making sure that you know everything helped out a little bit. And so now I hope that you feel extra comfortable for your test tomorrow. If you need anything, please let me know. Y'all have a good day.